Very good, very good. I got my daughter here. She's getting into the guitar, so I figured it's gonna be way above her, but she could learn a little bit and check you out. I get to say hello too.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you. And
Very good.
what's
Very
your
good.
daughter's name?
I got my daughter here. She's getting into the guitar, so I figured it's gonna be way above her, but she could learn a little bit and check you out. I get to say hello too.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you. And
Very good.
what's
Very
your
good.
daughter's name?
I got
Oh,
my
wait,
daughter here.
it's like
She's getting into the guitar, so I
I have
figured
like a
it's gonna
funny
be way
loop
above
going
her, but she
on.
could learn a little
Are you
bit and
guys experiencing
check
that?
you out. I get to say
It's
hello too.
really Yeah, psychedelic. Glad to see you. And
Very
Sorry.
okay, there we go. Yeah, I don't know. That was weird, Greg. I had this. It was like it got really psychedelic there for a second. Um, but I wanted to just tell your daughter welcome, and I love your dad, and I'm glad to see you. And I could probably teach you everything I know in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. That's not very comforting. And yeah, I think we need more from you than that. Susan, I'm sending the file right now
Okay.
to everybody. So, welcome everybody. My name's Bill Ias from the Long Island Bluegrass Club, or the Bluegrass Club of Long Island. I never know what to say. We're here at the Long Island Bluegrass Festival 2020 Bizarre Extravaganza. And so, we're lucky to have 5 workshops and 6 concerts. And today's workshop features Andy Falco. And we're streaming right now live on YouTube. So if you'd like to share that with your friends and they don't feel like being part of the meet, the Zoom meet right now is going to have all of you in it. Andy's going to run it once we get started. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to turn your microphone on and ask a question, especially if Andy goes, "Hey, guys, you got any questions?" And then, that's basically the best time to do that. The keep your microphones off until then, so we get a nice clean signal. So I'm going to introduce Susan Schwartz Christian. She's going to talk a little bit. Do you have the list, Susan, or is Liz going to do it?
I think Liz is going to
Ah, okay, Liz.
do
Liz
it.
is the executive director of the Babylon Citizens Council of the Arts right now, and she's going to talk the thank you talk. Go for it.
Hi, everybody. This is
Hi,
Hi,
Liz.
Liz.
the, the Long Island Bluegrass and Roots Music Festival is made possible in part by you. Your contribution will provide critical funding that will help BACA continue this festival and support other arts and cultural initiatives in our community. We can't keep the music playing without you. If to learn more about the Long Island Bluegrass Festival, go to libluegrassfestival.org, longislandbluegrass.org, or babylonarts.org to find out more about BACA. And funding for the Long Island Bluegrass Festival is provided by Suffolk County. Thank you to Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning for working with BACA to make sure this year's festival is possible through the 2020 Suffolk County Omnibus Grant. BACA's programs are also made possible in part with public funds from National Endowment for the Arts, the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of Governor Andrew M. Cuomo and the New York State Legislature, the County of Suffolk, County Executive Stephen Ballone and the Suffolk County Legislature, the Town of Babylon Supervisor Rich Schaefer, the Town of Babylon Local Development Corporation, the Lindenhurst Business Improvement District, and from membership and private contributions.
Good job, Liz. That's a mouthful. I did it a few times. It's rough. Next up, I'd like to introduce Andy Sussman and George Greer. They're performing, or we're having their performance played, and we're going to do a Zoom meet, and you're going to listen to them banter about who knows what. It's always interesting. This might be the longest one. So anyway, Andy and George, you want to talk about Saturday's performance and just briefly introduce the band?
No, man, I don't want to. Now you hurt my feelings. Now you hurt my feelings like I was going to say something inappropriate to these nice people. Hi, guys. What's up? How you doing? Hello. Me and George are playing on Saturday. Thanks again. But I really want to see my boy Andy Falco play right now. But if you guys are around Saturday night, We did a whole live stream, and it was awesome. And Chuck and Bill were there, and it was a beautiful day. And Bill even came up and played a tune with us on Mando. And we have bass player Zach Swanson was with us. It was a nice day. I think we did about a 45-minute to an hour set, and we did some new ones. We have a new album coming out pretty soon. Hopefully it's being done now, and hopefully if you guys are around, you can come check it out. That's it.
Come have a listen, spread the word. Yeah, Andy plays some amazing mandolin and cello, and Zach is an insanely good bassist. I play a little banjo and guitar, a little Americana, bluegrass, bluesy stuff. It was good. My favorite part was, there's two things I really liked. We played the Bluegrass Festival in 2016, I think, and I was on vacation with my family in the Outer Banks of North Carolina and drove back to Long Island for it.
That's the best $100 you ever made.
Well, it's not a smart financial. It wasn't a smart financial band decision.
Are you saying Bluegrass is not going to make you a millionaire? Okay.
No.
Right.
You got to start with 2 million.
That's right.
And then you end up with 1 million. Right.
So
anyway, my favorite part of their
much
performance.
Smaller.
My favorite part of their performance was George sent me home with a big basket of vegetables and a full belly.
From the garden.
I appreciate you made pulled pork and great risotto. This guy makes an amazing risotto. I'm just saying. Anyway,
food and music keeps the world together.
That's true. I'm sorry we're not here with food too, Andy Falco. So, I've had the pleasure to know Andy for many, many years and watch his career take off, which is awesome. It's great to see that he's done so amazingly as a musician and a writer. And so he's going to share that with us. So without further ado, Andy Falco from Sayville, Long Island. Yeah, man. We can have something cool. We have Andy Falco.
How's everyone doing? I was gonna just maybe play a song first, but I see guitars and stuff around too, so I want to make sure that
play a song.
Okay, let's see. This is a song that actually me and my brothers play together whenever we can, and we had the pleasure of recording for this festival, which will air on Halloween. Actually, our segment will. And this is a song that we played there. It's an old one that I wrote some years ago with a guy named Benny Galloway, and I wrote it with him in Boulder, Colorado. And it's a song that really, I don't know, like it just kind of became a song that I do with my brothers. So we did this song at that taping, and actually, I'm going to try to play it. Let's see. I don't know what you're seeing. You keep looking all around. It's looking like another little sleepy one-horse town. On down around the corner, on down some dead-end street. Not getting where you're going, always on the fly. Forget the wind is blowing till the song goes sailing by. Never will convince myself tomorrow comes too soon. Not never near enough of what I need, or wings upon my feet. I don't care about the weather in a city or a town. Ain't getting any better. Ain't no use to settle down. Over here is what you want. Over there is what you need. The times we had together, we laughed until we cried. Forget the wind is blowing till the song goes sailing by. Never will convince yourself it ain't that kind of tune. Not never near enough of what you need, or wings upon your feet. The times we had together, we laughed until we cried. Forget the wind is blowing till the song goes sailing by. Never will convince ourselves it ain't that kind of tune. Not never near enough of what we need, or wings upon our feet. Wings upon our feet. That's for Bill. Bill, that one's for you, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. That's an awesome tune.
Thanks. So that is a, kind of from an instrumental point of view, it's kind of, I don't know, maybe like influenced a little bit by Norman Blake or Tony Rice or something, where there's just
very,
kind of like
very gracious, yeah.
a very clear sort of melody that's played on the guitar and then, singing really. I mean, and that one, even when we play it, there's no solos really, like improvised solos. It just kind of old-timey in that sense where it just kind of sticks to the melody sort of always, and sometimes that's appropriate. Some people in bluegrass would argue that that's kind of the only way to do it, but sometimes it's nice just to kind of stretch out too.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Church Street Blues, that album,
Yeah, definitely like that kind of a thing for sure. So obviously like a bunch of guitar players here, which is awesome. And does anybody, I would say, like, since it is a guitar workshop, if anybody has any questions, I can sort of try to, I don't know how we do that on this, but in an orderly fashion. But does anybody have any questions? Maybe just raise your hand. I'll call on you. Although I don't know if I can see it. I'm not sure that I could see everybody. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 16 screens, including mine. Is that everybody, Bill?
I think that's about everybody, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, maybe if you just raise your hand, I can try to answer any questions you might have. Anybody? Okay, Story.
Hey Andy, how's it going?
How are you?
It's good to see you again, man.
Good to see you too.
For this, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about rhythm and how to develop bluegrass rhythm and to get a strong chop and
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question actually because bluegrass rhythm guitar as like a bluegrass musician, or like if you're playing guitar in a jam or in a band or whatever, your number one job is to play rhythm. I mean, that is like a number one, and so it's really important to have a solid rhythm even before you get into any kind of like soloing or anything, because that stuff can, you're always going to be evolving, with that, but there's this fundamental rhythm that's like really important, to be in a string band, because that you're the drums and you're sort of the driving force, and rhythm playing in bluegrass is so fun too, because you are such a big part of the rhythm section, and you have so much kind of control and say over the dynamics of the song based on how you play, which is really fun. You can really shape those dynamics, and So, I kind of came from a definitely like an electric guitar background, and grew up playing like blues and that kind of stuff in bands. And so when I started playing bluegrass, it was, definitely like this it was a thing, it's like, how do you play rhythm? It's a whole important thing that you have to kind of work on, it takes a minute. So like I really like show people like a basic bluegrass rhythm in like a 3 or 4 step, like method kind of. And it starts with like the regular standard boom chuck is as sometimes they call it. So it would be like, like a downstroke. So we're gonna be doing this out of a G chord, right? And like a bluegrass, typically in bluegrass, when you play a G chord, you're kind of playing a power chord, meaning like, there's no real like thirds in it that would really, like a G chord with the third. There's your third. It's like very major, it's like, and this chord, it doesn't have that third, so it's kind of like a power chord, and that comes from like, in like rock, power chords are like, and it's just like the root and the fifth and the root, So this chord, even though it doesn't sound quite as gnarly as that, it's all like roots, and it's all G's and D's, roots and fifths, So that's kind of that G chord, and I'm not really playing this like, you could play the B up here on the A string, but I'm not doing that. I just kind of mute it kind of with this finger that's fretting the G up top on the bottom there. And it kind of frees up this first finger to kind of, you can kind of like, it gives you a little finger there to do that sort of thing if you want. But but what's like really important about all that, about the rhythm, is the right hand. That's really like the, or the left hand if you're lefty. But the hand, the strumming hand. And so the way I kind of show people to do it is like you start with like this boom chuck rhythm, which is like, down, you play like a downstroke on that bass G note, and then you sort of play another downstroke on the first, second, and third strings of the chord. Okay, so, and you're gonna do that, and then you're gonna follow it with an open D string downstroke on that bass note, and then another strum on those strings. Now, what you want to be careful about with that is you don't really want that to be like you don't want it to be like a sweep. You want it to be as close to like all of them at once, like a piano chord, So it's almost like a snap. Now, during all this, you want to keep you want your whole, you want everything to be kind of as relaxed as possible. You don't really want to feel any tension anywhere. Especially in your arm. So you want everything to be relaxed. And that's kind of the thing to do. Now, like you start, that's like what I would call like, the first sort of step in this 3 or 4 step progress. And that rhythm, you should really be practicing that with a metronome always. I mean, you should always use a metronome when you're doing this sort of thing, because no matter how slow you have to make it to be able to do it, once you get past the phase of like just kind of feeling it out and seeing where, okay, I got everything down, once you actually start playing it in rhythm, you definitely want to have a metronome going, as much as possible, no matter how slow it is, because it's better to do it slow, in time, and correctly than it is to be doing it fast for a second and slowing down and, doing this sort of thing, It's much better to just kind of keep and because that's going to hook your whole timing up, later. So anyway, So that's kind of step one, is kind of doing this thing. Now, obviously, like I said, with the metronome, but you're going to be going, and like you're going to be doing just this for a minute. And that's like the boom chuck rhythm kind of, you know. And all the while you're kind of concentrating on making sure you're not feeling any tension in your right arm or anything. Okay? And if you're like, just to be sure, because I'm not sure, you know, of people's levels and stuff, the chord that I'm making is like, I have like my pinky on the 3rd fret of the 1st string, and I have my 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and then I have my middle finger on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. And that's the chord that I'm making, just in case anybody doesn't know that. But so that's step one. And you notice it's all downstrokes. And I'm concentrating a lot on keeping my wrist really loose but controlled. You know, you're not strumming all the way down here like this. You're keeping it loose, but you're keeping it controlled, because you have, you know, with your right arm, you have, you know, these pivot points. You know, you have your wrist and then you have your elbow, and like when they work together, you can really minimize how much work each one is doing, you know, and it kind of gives you a little bit more efficiency, which means you'll have more like stamina and stuff like that. And you also even have a little bit out of, like, especially with like Tony Rice, you have a lot. He even uses a lot like with his thumbs like that. But you have these like different pivot points, and, you know, you can use them like, you know, if you're doing too much wrist sometimes, you know, you might put a little elbow in just to kind of share that work, you know, but you don't want to be kind of like doing this sort of thing unless you're like doing a show and you're absolutely rocking out and you just want to, like, you know, you just want to strum like that. Then it's legit, you know, definitely. But like as far as like efficiency for guitar, you know, you want to, like, you know, try to keep it mellow. But you know, but you want to have the power, and like one way to get the power is like, you know, when you're playing guitar, sometimes I play lying on my back, but most of the time you sitting up, and you know, you have gravity. Believe it or not, the gravity you could use gravity to kind of like to get power, you know, out of your right hand, you know, because you have a lot of weight, you know, in your hand there against those strings. And so, you know, it's all about trying to kind of like find the most efficient way to do things and use the least amount of energy, but still get all the power. It's like, you know, when Mr. Miyagi shows him how to hammer the nail, you know, with just on one hit, you know, you're kind of trying to, like, you know, sort of hone in your power in that same kind of way, and using gravity and using everything you can to do that. And at first you kind of like, when you're practicing, you think about all of that, but ultimately you don't really want to be thinking about that when you're playing, you know. But anyway, so you're trying to keep your hand like relaxed, and you're doing that. And that's like, you know, what I would consider like the first step. Then like the second step would be like to add some upstrokes. So you're going to be going, and what I'm doing is I'm following those like chord strike downstrokes with an upstroke, and it's kind of the same idea. You want to kind of hit those strings as on the upstroke just like you are on the downstroke. You want that all to be real even. So it's like, before, step one was just the downs. Step two, again, keeping your wrist, you know, as relaxed as possible and trying to, you know, really get that accurate in time with the metronome and all that stuff. And that's kind of like step two. Then like step three of that whole thing would be this little, like, I'm doing this little quick down up. That's like, you know, on these center strings, on the fourth and third strings. So it's in context. It's like this, that little thing. And really, what I'm adding is kind of like, because you'd be normally doing the downstroke on your D string there, is you're adding a quick upstroke that's kind of hitting both the third and the fourth string. And that's like, how I would frame out sort of the most basic sort of bluegrass style rhythm. And so in context, it's like this. Faster. Now, when you listen to that, without playing a notes, it's a lot like a washboard or something. It's a lot like, and there's like, that's the rhythm, and that's like this sort of driving force,
Train.
And that's kind of what keeps the music propelling forward. Now, the only difference, like if I was actually playing in the band, say, when the bass player is playing, maybe you don't need to accent those bass notes so much. And so I kind of do a very similar thing. And the idea of doing that is just you get your hand in the motion, but eventually what you do is I kind of like blur out almost those bass notes so that they're not quite as, because, you want the bass player to do that, if you're playing with the bass player. So probably sounds more like that. So that's kind of, like a basic bluegrass rhythm, I would say.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
But there's so many ways, there's so many variations. And the cool thing is when you first start getting into that rhythm, you could use each one of those stages on their own to start varying your rhythm. You can. There's like 3 different ways to do it there, which, you don't necessarily always play the same rhythm pattern all the way through a song. And, when you start really getting into string band music rhythm and bluegrass, rhythm, once you sort of get your, that relaxed right hand and you're kind of really feeling that pocket, then the fun really begins, because then you start getting into, the dynamics of the song. And, for example, when you're playing a song that has, vocals and stuff, singing, like you can do these like little swells, for example, like you might like back off a little bit on your rhythm while the singing's happening. And so in other words, let me demonstrate. Like, this 9-pound hammer is a little too heavy for my size, baby, for my size. Well, roll on, buddy, don't you roll so slow. How can I roll when the wheels won't go? And that kind of starts to breathe a little bit more life into the music, rather than I could have just went, this 9-pound hammer is a little too heavy for my size, baby, for my size. Or, well, roll on, buddy, don't you roll so slow. How can I roll when the wheels don't go? Banjo solo. It's so loud that you got to play louder rhythm, Somebody stole my 9-pound hammer. They took it in. You know what I'm saying? Do you understand? It's like, being able to shape the music that way is great, and you might play rhythm differently behind a banjo than you would, say a mandolin or whatever, you sort of adjust your rhythm to sort of, what you're doing is you're listening for the whole groove, which typically in a bluegrass band, a typical bluegrass quartet, say, that was like bass, banjo, guitar, and mandolin, let's say. The bass is playing boom, 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 and the guitar's going, and the mandolin's going, while the bass is going boom, 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 and the banjo's kind of playing like, kind of rolling through it. And the way I think of it is kind of like, of course, the bass is kind of like the kick drum, dum, 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 and the mandolin's kind of the snare, dum, 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 and the banjo is kind of like the hi-hat, almost like chicka, 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 and the guitar is sort of like gluing it all together, and kind of doing this whole thing. So Now, when like somebody like the mandolin goes to take a solo, well, now you're going to be there's going to be a void because there's going to be a lack of that snare drum. So you're going to maybe compensate for a little bit the way you're approaching your rhythm. You might I might play like a little bit more of like a, like I'm kind of like implying a little bit more of a chop, and the banjo player might even start to kind of cover that ground a little bit. So, and then when the banjo player is soloing, it's like all of this like heavy rhythm with this, sort of, thing going on. And so you might kind of start driving really hard with that, banjo, and then when the singing comes back in, you might sort of back off a little bit. So that's kind of like, your role as a rhythm guitar player in a bluegrass band, or as a guitar player in a bluegrass band, so it's really important stuff. And then, you can get deeper into different syncopations, and then you can go on and on just listening to, Clarence White or Tony Rice and all, kinds of sorts of modern cats, and just listening to how far the rhythm can go and expanding its role a little bit and everything. But as far as like fundamentally, I think that's kind of the role of the rhythm right there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Are there any other questions that I can answer possibly? Yeah. I got you, Clint.
Hey, Andy. Thanks.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking, and thanks for sharing your knowledge with us tonight. Awesome to be here with you. From someone who has a little bit of music theory background, not a ton, maybe beginning to intermediate, and a little bit of confidence with the guitar, but no bluegrass introduction or experience whatsoever, you'd say that those strumming patterns are something that you would be practicing? And what other stuff should we be practicing that you would suggest?
Yeah, so like what style of music did you come from?
Well, previously I had studied with a jazz guitar teacher in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And so Autumn Leaves was one of the first songs that I ever learned from him. And, from there just really started to branch out into a lot of modern rock that we would think of, and a lot of jam and the genres that surround that. And so, I mean, your guitar play and especially your rhythm has been such a huge influence on me as a listener that it's it's something I've always wanted to practice more, where I find I spend so much time noodling around, where the structure that you bring to a lot of your songs is incredible.
Thanks. Yeah, it's the rhythm stuff is just such a, like I can't stress enough, and I really can't overstate the importance of that. And really the joy in playing rhythm, like in a string band, like that's to me the funnest part of playing in a string band is kind of like the rhythm stuff because of that. And when you start getting really creative with it, it's kind of like, I think you're thinking of two things. You're thinking of like your chords like you would, and your harmony like you would in jazz, say, but like you're also have like an actual like percussive role in the band that has to be fulfilled, so you're kind of having to think about those two things. So you're almost like thinking like a guitar player, but you're also thinking like a drummer, in a lot of ways. And the part of the drum kit that you're putting together, it's like you're like a part of it, but that's also like with the people that you're playing with, like with my band, the String Dusters, for example, we've been playing together for so long, but like everybody sort of knows how to, that's what you're listening for all the time, where that like spot in the drum kit that you're filling, and that can shift from person to person depending on who's soloing or what's going on in the song. And but like I would say like one thing to really consider with the rhythms is a lot of times it's like having like open chords, open sounding chords. A lot of times, like with bluegrass rhythm, like we were just talking about, oftentimes those are, you're dealing with like open position chords, G, C, you know, all your chords down here, because it's a really full part of the guitar. With the dusters, you know, some of our music kind of has a more of like a maybe like a rock influence or something, you know, or other influences outside. And with that stuff, I start to kind of get more into like really trying to find chords that are also, I consider open chords, but just not like first position open chords. Like, for example, like this E here or this A here. And that gives you like this whole like full sort of sound that I think when you're approaching your rhythm, and like, you know, sometimes droney stuff, like the nice thing about this E chord position is like, and sometimes like there might be a song in G that in order to get the benefit of that sort of those sort of chord voicings, I might put my capo on just for that reason. Like for a song in G, I might put my capo on the 3rd fret, you know, and have all this like, you know, like there's a Duster song called Summer Camp where it's like my rhythm part is, it's like percussive, like it's like, and then the other part goes, so you see how I'm kind of playing two roles there. I'm sort of, you know,
almost playing the drums with the strings.
Yeah, exactly. But like it doesn't sound as good without the other guys doing, because everybody's sort of contributing to that sort of rhythm of that particular tune, which I wish I could play it for you just so you heard like but like that song's called Summer Camp, but like, you know, everybody's sort of adding their piece to that groove, and it sort of creates sort of this drum kit kind of, and that to me is like the most fun of playing in our band, is like the lack of drums and how to make it as powerful as with drums, you know, and get those alternate kind of grooves, you know. So I think, like, you know, coming from, you know, the style of music that you're coming from, sort of getting back to your question, you know, like what to work on, you know, like, yeah, like rhythm stuff is crucial, of course, you know, and, you know, having good timing. And I always tell people, like, you know, with the rhythm thing, it's like, if you could play good rhythm, then people will always want to jam with you. You know, if you don't play great rhythm, but you could solo up and down all the neck, nobody cares, you know, because, you know, it's not that fun to play with you. That it's fun for you, but it's not fun for everybody else. You know what I mean? So it's like when you're getting into string band music or you know, bluegrass music, and there is this like camaraderie, and there's like people, you play with people, and there's like a trust there too. Like even when you play in acoustic jams, you start to learn that playing as hard as you can isn't always, you know, you have to control your volumes. And that to me is another joy of like what got me into bluegrass to begin with, was like realizing that you could just have instruments and play in the middle of a field. You don't have to set up a PA system and have a whole amp and all this stuff like power, and you could just kind of set up in a circle and jam. And then you realize that, like, really to have those jams be awesome, it's like if you're playing rhythm in a jam and somebody's soloing and you can't hear them, but you can hear yourself, you know, you're probably playing too loud, you know? And so you want to, like, it's like this trust with each other and this respect, mutual respect, that, you know, controlling your instrument in that way too, and controlling dynamics and all that's like this group sort of fun thing that's like, you know, really great. And I think, you know, working with like great, if you start getting good rhythm, good solid rhythm, you're going to find that, you know, when you're in those situations, people are going to enjoy playing with you. And then, you know, that's what this is all about, kind of, you know.
I'm embarrassed to say that I don't practice enough with the metronome. And I think that's, you know, the starting point of all that there, you know, was a really important point made earlier. So,
yeah, nobody does really. And, you know, even to the point where, like, when you first start playing with it, you swear that there's something wrong with this metronome. Like, this is definitely broken, like absolutely for sure this metronome's broken, because it's weird. But yeah, and the metronome is something that, I always try to, try to play with, and sometimes you get away from it for a while, and I could feel it in my playing when I do get away from it. But like the metronome definitely gives you, when you play with the metronome all the time, when you get into actual musical settings where the metronome isn't there, you can play timing and stuff with much more authority and confidence. And that's what like a lot of this music is, sounding really good, being like, playing your instrument with authority and confidence, and your timing is good. And even if your timing wavers a little bit, which it naturally will, for everybody, and that's okay. But like, just having that confidence and really digging in and getting good tone and volume without, straining yourself. And that's sort of like the whole game of it, especially with bluegrass music, on instruments that are, like mine, which is set up with, heavy string, they're 13 gauge strings, and, it's a very physically demanding, especially, I can sit here home all day long and sit here and play nice, beautiful, soft, get the tone all out of the guitar, But, when I play a Dusters show, now we're plugged in, we're in in-ear monitors, everything's like, coming through a big giant sound system with subwoofers, and the lights are going crazy, like it's not the same thing, and the jams and all that stuff, and the rhythm playing and the soloing, it's like, it's physically demanding, to do those shows. It's like there's no preparation, no matter how much I practice when I'm home before a Dusters tour, when I get on the road, it's going to take a few days to really feel like you've got your, what we call your muscle hand, That's what the Dusters call it. Okay, good. I got my muscle hand. It's like when you kind of gotten into the groove, and you're okay, now you're like, you've built that strength. But like that also requires, after 5 shows in a row, 5 nights in a row, you might, that 6th day or sometimes you do 6 shows in a row, that day off is like needed to continue the tour, because it's very physical, and, we don't often, as guitar players, think of it that way. As musicians, I think you don't really think about sort of the stamina part of it, but it is a big part of it. And so, anyway, I think that, always trying to play with authority is crucial, and all that. And the timing, the metronome will help you with that, But, yeah. Are there any other questions, or, yes?
I have a question regarding the stamina thing you just said. Do you notice specifically with like an F chord shape, if the band is really together, that F chord shape kind of just lies perfect, and if there's no real strain involved? But then if it's kind of nebulous, for lack of a better term, it kind of almost shows itself in the fatigue of the arm. Do you find that to be a thing even on tour with the band that you play with?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, when you start to get used to, like, and like I was explaining, like when you get into in-ear monitors and your guitar is plugged in, which makes the instrument react completely differently than it does acoustically, and all these other factors are involved, you have to really have the discipline. And it takes time, and to this day, sometimes I listen back to, a recording of a show, and I'm like, oh man, I'm just like, I could hear that I'm overplaying. I'm playing too tight. And it's like, I have to remember to, like, even though you're not hearing things right all the time, you have to try to fight the urge to sort of compensate by playing louder and stuff, because all that's going to do is make things sound not as good. And I do it all the time too, I really do. And it's like something that just, sometimes you just have to, like it's that discipline of remembering that when you're in that moment, to just kind of like relax, trust yourself, and trust that even though maybe you're not hearing things right, trust that in the grand mix of everything, it's going to sound best that way. If that makes sense. I know that's not really like a, but like, when you're playing in a situation and you start to feel like that tension, one cool trick that I think I got out of a book called The Inner Game of Music. One cool trick is like, if I'm playing and I'm feeling that sort of tension in whatever hand, let's say my right arm, I'm feeling some tension and say up in here, what I do is when I'm feeling that tension, I actually, let's say that tension is like a 7 out of 10, 10 being like really bad. Well, I feel that tension as a 7. Well, I'll like tense it up to a 10 and then relax it. And sometimes that'll just help my brain or something identify where that tension is and then like actually sort of relax it. And then it kind of like loosens you up a little bit, And also like your brain just does really crazy things when you're playing music, I mean, there's always somebody's there, a musician's there that you're trying to, that you really look up to. And so your brain is going, oh, I have to play really well, or your family's there and you want to do a good job, or there's something going on in the monitor and you can't hear yourself quite right. That's all like interference, that can make your brain sort of start talking to you when you're playing, and then that causes you to sort of tense up. Like, you ever notice that you always play your best when you're all by yourself in your living room or in your bedroom or something? That's when you always play your best stuff. You never miss, And then you get into a jam or a gig and you're like, why can't I just do it? And that's what it is. It's because there's all that interference. What you can do is what you did by yourself in the bedroom. That's what you're capable of. So like the idea is to sort of try to rid yourself of as much of that interference as possible to get to that you that's in the bedroom playing the music comfortably without really worrying about it, because you're not trying to do anything. You're just playing and you're relaxed, physically and mentally. And so, I would also consider thinking about that too in those situations, But, we don't all, I look at like a lot of these bluegrass cats and they just like, they rip nonstop and never miss a note ever, That's not me. I don't know, I don't know how they do that, but like I try to use that as inspiration, but these are ways that, so I have all those same things, when I'm playing, I have those same things happen, tension happens and all this stuff. And you just have to like, it's about, figuring out how to sort of, get yourself out of that.
It's like the Victor Wooden book. You ever read that?
I have not.
It's got he's I can't remember the name of it right now. The bass player, Victor Wooden.
Yeah.
Bela Fleck, and he has a whole concept of that. Plus he has something funky with his hands, some sort of like, he gets tense. It's a physical condition. It's probably a cognitive, but he can't play. But he wrote a book about it, and there's a couple other jazz guys that have great concepts about like playing open solos, and the second you think, you're done.
Yeah, that's it, man.
The second you say that's a badass solo, that's awesome, I wish I had thought of that. Oh, I did think of that. And then all of a sudden, you're no longer thinking about your solo. You're thinking about how well you played or how well you didn't play, or whatever it might be. It takes you into another place.
Yeah, and that goes not only with yourself as an individual, it even goes like as a band. Like I could tell you that like, years ago, if we were as a band doing like a bigger gig for us or something, and if we said to each other, all right, this is really important, we got to just go out and we got to play really great. We got to really, those were never our best shows ever. It's like if you just kind of go, hey man, it's another night. Let's just go out and do our thing, have a great show, like, and that's the same way when you're soloing or playing music or doing anything, as an individual too. It's like, you just have to kind of be like, the more relaxed you are and the more matter of fact you are in your mind, and you don't, you don't want to psych yourself out, because that's like a real thing, and it just causes that interference.
What was the name of the title of the book that you had just mentioned?
called
Yeah. What are you talking about? Which one?
Andy, you had referenced one.
the one that I was talking about is called The Inner Game of Music. And it's derived from like a series of books that started, I believe, with a book called The Inner Game of Tennis. I think it was like a tennis coaching book maybe first. But there's like the inner game of tennis, there's the inner game of skiing, there's the inner game of music, and when you think about it, they're all very similar things like tennis or skiing. It's like music is a lot like skiing when you think about it, like improvised music. It's like you're going down the hill and you got to kind of see your path ahead of time, and you got to kind of you got to react in real time to any sort of obstacles. And that's kind of like what improvising is really. So they're very similar things, and so this book was like written called The Inner Game of Music, which is kind of like similar concepts as the other books, but as related to music. And it's kind of like more like classically based, but that doesn't really matter. It's all about sort of this, like what he talks about in the book is like self one and self two, where one of them is the one that's like nagging at you, talking to yourself, that's like the interference. And then there's like the other self that's like, that inner part of you, that self that's playing, the music when you're in your living room, that relaxed more version of yourself. So yeah, it's cool. It's a cool book. Cody Kilby turned me on to that book years ago, and it's great. It really is a worthwhile thing to check out.
I just looked up the Victor Wooten book, and that is called A Music Lesson: A Spiritual Search for Growth Through Music.
It's
also, I've not even read that, but I've heard of that, several times, including today from Bill, and that's I'm sure great, because Victor is, he knows what's up.
Basically, he's completely out of his mind, but he's awesome. Read the book; it's so much fun. You're just like, what? But it's a cool book, and that's really, it's sort of a journey of his. It's a fictional version of his journey through, educating himself and becoming a player, and I guess somewhat real, but he's out there.
Yeah.
Bill, this is Bruce.
Hey, Bruce.
Hey, Bruce.
Hi.
How you doing, buddy? I haven't seen you in many years.
Yeah, still standing up, doing good.
Good for you, man. Good to see you.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, great. That's awesome, man.
You're talking about another thing about playing really hard when you think you need to go beyond the moment or something. Breathing is a really significant part.
I used to never breathe. I used to hold my breath.
Yeah, me too. And then I'd find myself hyperventilating before I had to sing or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's so true. The breathing is very important, actually, to be aware of. I'm glad you pointed that out, because that is probably more important than anything else.
Yeah, good to have air. Another thing about Victor Wooten, I think I'm correct on this. I don't know if he still does it, but he used to run summer camps on orienteering. Going out in the woods and not getting lost, but trying to find your way back. And I think that's another metaphor for soloing in a way, because you're stepping out on a limb and there's no going back, So.
For sure, man. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Victor, very wise individual, for sure.
We have a question from Eli. Can you share your process of learning a new song?
Sure. If it's like a song or an instrumental, I guess, if I'm learning like a song, I typically I try to just learn I usually do it by ear, and I try to just learn the chord structure first, and and then like the lyrical stuff, and then I try to kind of make it my own. But like, I would say like one thing that's important, um, when you're trying to like learn new music is to listen to it a lot. Like if let's say I was going in the context of doing like let's say Eastbound Freight asked me to play some shows with them, at some gigs, and they sent me a bunch of music. The first thing I would do is I would listen to it until I knew it up here first, know like the song and how it goes, because that's ultimately going to make it way easier, than like listening to a song for the first time and also trying to learn it. Like to me, I'll like, if I was doing some shows with the band and had to learn a bunch of music, I just like listened to it for, maybe a week, before I even pick up an instrument and like visualize playing it. And then by the time I sit with the guitar, I kind of know how the songs are going to go. I've already kind of envisioned some of the changes. Maybe a couple of them I wasn't quite sure what they were, and I have to sit with it. But I've gotten myself, 75% of the way at that point, and then, I sit. But, like if you're learning music, like off of, like songs that exist, like on YouTube, YouTube, you could slow stuff down, which is awesome, and I've done that too. You could like control the speed of a YouTube video, and that's such a great tool that you used to have like a Marantz machine to do years ago, but like now you could just go on YouTube, and anything that's up on YouTube, you could just slow it right down and get every single note right. But once you learn what the notes are, it's important to always play it slowly and get it right and accurate, slow at a tempo that you can handle, no matter how slow it is, and then bring the tempo up. And always like keeping in mind, sometimes if you're playing like a melody really slow, the tendency is to like maybe play all like downbeats, and I mean downstrokes, and you want to be careful of that, because of course when you get it up to tempo, you're not going to be able to do all downstrokes if it's like really fast or something. So, I mean, most of the time I'm doing down, up, down, up, down, up, for the most part. Sometimes you double some things up, but for the most part, default is like down, up, down, up. So, but like that being said, that's kind of how I learn new music. Is I listen first. I make sure I know how the song goes in my head. I've even visualized what chords they might be. I try to guess what key it is before I even pick it up, just for fun, and to see if I can get it. And then by the time I pick up an instrument with it, I kind of have an idea of, how it goes. So I hope that helps. I think it's hard for me to. My screen's a little bit far away, but I think it's Joshua. Yeah.
Hey, that's me. One really cool app is the amazing Slow Downer. You can get on your phone and you can slow down Spotify songs.
That's solid. Yeah, that's solid. Like any of those tools are any of those tools are really handy, and. I mean, when I was like learning guitar, you had them if you had like a tape machine that you could adjust, or like sometimes with a record player, of course, you could try to like if you had the right settings or whatever. But I never really honestly did much of that because I didn't have the ability to do that. But now it's like if I'm trying to learn something, if it's like a song that's like been recorded and it's on YouTube, the first thing I do is go on YouTube, and if it's like fast stuff, I'll just like slow it down.
I have a question too about crafting solos.
Yeah.
I find when I work my way up the neck, I end up doing the same things to get kind of from the low frets to the high frets.
Uh-huh.
And do you have any tips for remembering to like switch it up, or different techniques you can use to work your way up the neck while you're building solo?
Yeah. Well, I would say that maybe it's like one thing to think about is like, rather than, of course, I would preface it by saying you don't necessarily need to go up the neck, Like you don't want to just go up the neck to go up the neck, you know. So if there's a reason why you're kind of going up there, you know, and I think like so that like brings into you know, so that's like obvious, but like if you want to kind of go up the neck, it's like, you know, knowing different where all the chords are. If you know where all the chords are, then you know where the positions are, kind of, you know, like, you know, you have like your open G, for example, and then you have this G chord here, and you have this G chord here, you have this G chord here. So it's like, from a really like coarse perspective, you have kind of like a visual of like, if you know where all those chords are, you have that visual of where your hands need to go, because wherever there's chords, there's going to be the scales and the melody, really, and you know, so I would say once you know these different positions, you know, it's like you're gonna wanna, you know, figure out how to connect them, and like kind of like what works really well, I have to say, is just a regular pentatonic scale. Is so good. That in conjunction with like chromatic scales can get you so far up and down the neck very quickly. So like, in other words, what I'm trying to say is, if you kind of like learn like some of your open position stuff, okay, your G stuff in open position. Oh, this is the stuff that I play in G, you know, in open position. And then you have like your you know, next position G stuff. Okay, this is the stuff I'm going to play that I do in G, you know, in this sort of kind of like dominant seventh kind of, you know, bluesy kind of thing. Here's some stuff in this G area, you know. And then, you know, moving up to this area, it's kind of like Jerry's stuff that I kind of might do up there in G. And then back up to the octave. So now, like, once you kind of figure out each little area, well, now you just like to get like more fluid, maybe. You know, this pentatonic scale can get you from like almost the lowest note on the instrument to almost the highest note on the instrument in no time at all. But it's not just like an express train, you know? You could take the local, you know? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to go from here to go all the way up to end up here. You can make stops along the way. Whatever, you know? So you can like then like play your stuff in here. Does that make sense? Kind of like I kind of played like some stuff in each little position, and I just, when it was time, when I wanted to move up, I just, at a time that I made my way down to that, you know, G note and was able to get, you know, to that, use that pattern just a little bit to get to the next position smoothly, you know?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And thinking about it, like obviously the G and the A bar chords make sense, but thinking about where the D fits in kind of bridges that gap, and that's super helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, that's like, you know, for me it was like, you know, when I was learning guitar and learning like soloing, and I had these like, you know, people, you know, I remember like learning, like one of the first things I ever learned like was like, you know, like some little lick or something like that, whatever it was. And you know, and you learn these like, you know, and you're just kind of playing these little, you know, we've all started there, right? You know, and it's like, but then, you know, you start listening to maybe like, you know, you fast forward, I'm listening to sort of B.B. King and stuff, and I'm hearing like this, and, you know, and then, you know, but I'm also hearing like bluesy stuff that's like, you know, but then it's like, how do you connect that stuff? Well, you know, it's like those pentatonics, you know, And that was like kind of the moment for me where the looking down at the fingerboard, sort of everything all of a sudden then kind of connected. It was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, okay, so these licks all can sort of be connected by, okay, and that helped me out a lot, to start to be able to explore a little bit more, And the other thing I would say to answer your question is also, using open strings to get yourself sometimes from up the neck back home, or vice versa. Using an open string can give you a moment to sort of move your, So I'm kind of, there's that open string. I could have gone, but then I'm still up here, so, and then I could even, I can kind of make a stop, here, or I can go all the way down. Sorry. Anyway, so, if you can ever find open strings like that, and there's like certain licks that work well for that, that helps too, I think. Sometimes. So, cool. Any other questions that I might be able to answer? Is it, I can't see very well, but it looks like Frank. Is it Frank?
Yeah. Yes. Do you think you'd be able to play your version of Sitting on Top of the World? I caught your video of it before. And
yeah,
really, really impressive there.
Oh, thanks. That is a, it's funny you should mention that. My friend, let me see if I can find the photo. Yeah, here we go. So a good friend of mine came by here, and we had like a, an outside little distance hang, a good friend of mine, and he's a little bit older than me, and he had this friend named Danny Kalb, who was a guitar player that played in a band called the Blues Project in the late 60s. And he was kind of, at the time, especially like a real hotshot guitar player. He's great guitar player. And my friend found this picture when we were hanging out one time, because he was friends with them, and I used to get to sit with them and jam and stuff in the kitchen, and I got this picture that he brought me yesterday of Danny and me. I haven't seen Danny in many, many years, but anyway, so it's funny that you should bring that up, because with that arrangement of that song, Danny used to do this thing, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it was maybe an Elizabeth Cotten thing, and so like the whole like intro of this version that you're talking about of Sitting on Top of the World, which was done, I think the one you're talking about is the one from the Station Inn, and I did a video called Guitar Mageddon with Josh Williams and Chris Eldridge, and then when we did this like, flat picking video or whatever, there was also like a segment where we each did like a song solo, and so I didn't really know what to do solo, so I just kind of did this, for that particular thing. And what it is the whole beginning of that is what I can remember Danny playing when he played this particular Elizabeth Cotten thing that I don't really know what it is. And I think probably the way that I'm playing is not accurate at all. It's just only what I can remember that he did, as much as I can, and that kind of thing was kind of something like that. And then I just kind of tagged on Sitting on Top of the World. 'Twas in the spring, and I did kind of like a, what's the musical term for that when there's not really time, it just sort of floats around. But that's where that comes from. And it's this progression that was that's to the A7. And then A sharp diminish. G sharp major, and then it does like a C sharp minor, and then like a B with a E flat in the bass, and then the A sharp diminished again, and then it does a F sharp minor. That's the 5 chord, the B, and then. Let's see, how did I do the Turner? I think that's what I did. I can't remember.
It kind of has the same feel as Nobody Knows When You're Down and Out.
Yeah, it's kind of like that sort of a thing. Yeah. And
going along with chords like that.
I wish I could go back in time and ask Danny exactly what that was that he did, but it was this really cool thing that he played. And it was like instrumental, and I seem to remember he told me it was an Elizabeth Cotton thing, but I could be wrong.
It might be a typical ragtime rhythm of the progression from back in the day.
Yeah. So that's what that is, And so then I just kind of improvised around. I'm just kind of playing just blues licks around that, and then I just sang, Sitting on Top of the World, probably because that might have been one of the few songs at that moment that I could think of the lyrics to.
I do a lot of finger style blues, and
cool.
as soon as I heard you hit that progression there, you just had me hooked.
Cool, yeah, isn't that beautiful? And that I think that's like, yeah, and that's I gotta credit Danny with that, because I don't really know where it came from, and that's where I got it from, though, is what I could remember him playing, and it was.
I could even hear when you were doing a little noodling prior to the song, you were just showing the different scales or something that you played in, and I could hear the phrasing, and I could tell you had a blues background.
Yeah, I mean, probably more so than bluegrass in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I could hear that right off. It was.
I consider myself kind of like an imposter of bluegrass music in a lot of ways, because, I come from a background, and, when I moved to Nashville, at that time there was just, for me, just this desire to, you hear these players like Brian Sutton, Cody Kilby, any of those kinds of people, and, you're like, God, I want to be able to do that. I want to do that. But, after a while, I realized that, there's like, you have your own musical DNA, and I didn't grow up playing bluegrass music, and there's no reason why I should sound like I've been playing bluegrass music all my life, because I haven't been, and it's okay it was kind of like after a year or two in Nashville, I sort of started to realize, well, that's, what I do is just what I do, and so how do I tap into what's like my musical DNA, which includes, bluegrass certainly, but like also, anything that I've done musically or listened to. Really, it's like that's each one of our own musical DNA, and so if you can kind of tap into that, and like Clint played jazz, like let that come out in the music. Why not? It should, And I think it's like about how to, when you have a music like bluegrass music, there is, there's got to be sort of also like a respect for the tradition and an understanding of the tradition, and but it's okay to do your own thing too, and so it's kind of knowing when to insert your own thing and when not, maybe in some sort of, there might be situations where if you're playing, in a jam that people, are jamming and they're playing straight ahead bluegrass, you're not going to go and do like your Eddie Van Halen solo, you probably try to, but like, but what I mean is, but there's nothing wrong with having like influences and try to put it into each context. And it works both ways too. When I play blues now and electric guitar now, I feel like bluegrass comes the other way too, into my electric playing as well. And I think, I like that personally. I think it's cool to sort of try to make your own thing, so anyway. I do come from very much a blues background, more certainly goes further back to me than bluegrass, by far.
Well, you definitely seem to have the, you call it faking, but it seems like you have the bluegrass mastered to me.
Thank you. Thanks. I think it's like, sometimes if you just, like try to tap into, with bluegrass, a lot of it, when you're getting onto an acoustic guitar coming from blues or rock or jazz or whatever, it's, a lot of people might think that bluegrass is easier. They might think it's easier to play, especially like with the chords and stuff, because they for some reason there might be like a misconception of it being like a less sophisticated music, but actually, to me, it's like very sophisticated, particularly like in like rhythm guitar and stuff like that. It's very nuanced, and there's a way to do it that's very difficult, and I'm still trying to constantly, learn and hone and learn more, and I mean, it's like.
Well, I've heard bluegrass referred to as the classical music of the folk world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. That's a great.
It's so structured, but it's amazing. Like when you go to a festival or something, and you come across some guy that you know they're not a pro, and you know that they're singing their asses off because that's just the way they've heard it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're like, okay, that guy has that sound. You don't know why, and he knows because he grew up around it. But it's not that's not their thing. That's the fun thing about festivals. I just want to say your performance for since I'm like one of the only people that have heard your performance of your brothers, I really enjoyed you talking about bluegrass and then not necessarily having roots in bluegrass, since this is a bluegrass and roots festival. But a lot of what you guys do as a trio, your brothers, since it's the Falco brothers that will be performing on Halloween, is you could tell, and I'm sure you feel that way about your band, the String Dusters. You have your brothers, but brothers from another mother kind of thing, where that you've come together and you've come to a consensus. But the movement you guys had, with the three of you as the Falco brothers, literally the brothers, you can really hear, especially Pat, like putting it all together for you guys. It was really a really great performance.
Thanks.
I
yeah,
can't wait for people to hear it on Halloween. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and that was like, I don't know how much bluegrass we did in that. We played, I think, like a lot of like original songs and stuff, but yeah, it's but like, here on Long Island, it's like you don't really get exposed to tons and tons of bluegrass,
Yeah.
And for me, I was fortunate once we were playing on sort of the music scene as an electric band, but kind of once I connected with Buddy Miriam, and I started playing with Buddy, and then that opened up like a whole world, and you had Buddy Miriam doing his thing with the band, and you had Eastbound Freight and those guys like Barry, Bruce Barry's here and stuff, and because I remember you from back then, meeting you back then, you guys were playing legit bluegrass, and that was like, it was hard, I didn't know that existed until I got sort of turned on to it. It's not like in your face everywhere, but that was I feel lucky to have had that sort of exposure to get to hear, and also, learn directly, from Buddy and those guys. And, because I didn't know anything really about it except for just a little bit, when it came to bluegrass. I mean, when Buddy asked me to join the band, I was like, I don't really know I don't know how to play bluegrass. Like, and he was nice enough to sort of, bring me in, and I kind of like learned, in a weird way, because I was in a lot of ways sort of thrown into the fire, just kind of, playing gigs and hear songs that we do, and just trying to, a lot of the fiddle tunes that I learned were kind of like, there'd be like, Buddy say would start a mandolin tune, and, it'd be some fast Monroe tune or something. And, and everyone would kind of take a solo down the line, and that'd be my turn. I'd have to kind of listen to as much of the melody as I can get, but I didn't, and just try to hang on for dear life with the tempos, on stage, kind of like earn while you learn or something. But, I was lucky, and there were, some events, where we'd run into the Eastbound Freight guys, and yeah, it was just, it was cool. And then, of course, the festivals, and you start to kind of meet more people. And then there's like, the Bluegrass Jam, and you start to realize that there's like a community there. And, that's kind of.
You met a bunch of Dusters guys back at like in Boston at Framingham.
Yeah, that's right. That's actually where I remember meeting Chris Pandolfi.
Right, that's where
was in the hallway at the Joe Val Festival.
Oh, Joe Val. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Chris Eldridge introduced me to Pandolfi in the hallway. I remember that very distinctly. Now, I met Chris Eldridge at, when we used to go down to Kentucky to IBMA. I used to go with Buddy, and we met Chris Eldridge. He roamed into our room at like 7:00 in the morning, because we were up all night jamming, of course, and he kind of, it was like late. We were leaving that day. It was like the last night, and he kind of like wandered in, like, "Hey, you guys still picking?" He had his guitar on. We're like, "Well, we're hanging for a little bit. We actually got to, and we hung out for a while." That's where I met Chris Eldridge. And these are like festivals, and then you start jamming. And
the first time I ever met Mike Cleveland was like, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and he walks by, and he's like, "Do you want to pick?" And we go, "Sure." And we had whiskey, and he knew it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Goes, "Well, I'm blind, so I don't care what time it is."
Yeah, right. He's the best. God, Michael's the best. He's the man. And I mean, that's it. That's how it goes. But like, it's an oral tradition. And so the more people that you hang with, and you play with, and you watch and learn from, and I mean, that's. But you want to learn like rhythm guitar, just like go see Del McCurry and watch him, and whatever he's doing, that's the right thing to do. That's it, And for me, that was a big part of it too. Like at Gray Fox, watching the Del McCurry band, and also, watching the Del McCurry band and do their thing. And the Paisleys too. Paisleys. When the old man was alive, and they were both playing rhythm guitar. I mean, the rhythm of those two bands was like what really, like, watching that and seeing it in action and feeling that. That was like, for me, the really like what I was then trying to put into context of like the bluegrass that I was playing, and those guys are the masters, and in fact, when years later, playing with the Traveling McCurrys, it was kind of like, because the Traveling McCurrys is the Del McCurry band without Del, and so I sometimes would be the guitar player, so it was like kind of coming almost in a lot of ways like full circle for me for rhythm to actually get to do that and actually be in that band, playing guitar. Was like an incredible learning experience, and everything that you do, and everybody you jam with, and everybody you play a gig with, or just, pick with, or whatever, it's all an opportunity to learn something and pick something up, and hopefully that journey never ends, and that's what I try to do always, so
yeah, those two bands, those two bands in particular, I think for guitar players, they're incredibly worth watching, because they're not really super fast right hands or anything. Everything fits like a lock, though. It's just so precise and so punchy, and no hole.
Yeah.
If there are holes there, it's for a reason.
And it drives the whole thing. It shapes the whole.
It breathes, and it has tremendous energy.
Yeah. Yeah, and there ain't no G run like a Del McCurry G run. That's for sure.
No, it could crack your skull with it or something.
That's right. So I think that's and going to there's like when festivals come back and stuff, and right now we have these kinds of opportunities, but I haven't done too many. This is the first group workshop I've done via Zoom, but and it's really cool that, by the way, that you guys put all this together, and I certainly appreciate getting to hang with you all and come here, and I want to thank Bill specifically for hitting me up and including me in it, because it really is quite an honor to be a part of.
We've wanted you on the festival for years, but you're always busy in August, so
I know I gotta just clear my schedule or something.
Well, this actually works.
Clear now.
It's clear now. That's why you're here, man.
No, I really is. I'm super, psyched to be here and do this. But but I encourage you guys all to, with the guitar stuff, just there's you watch the masters, and watching them too is like such a, and we have like YouTube videos now during COVID, but like during the when that's all over, going to actually watch them and feel like what they're doing, get up close, and that's you see sort of that, and that's hard to do. Nobody does it like Del, that's for sure, and that's like where like the rhythm stuff comes in, and for soloing stuff, that's just it's kind of the same approach, really, really just kind of trying to get, you don't have to know everything to play a thoughtful and musical solo, on music, you can, it's just like learning a language where, you if you went to a country and, okay, I got to learn this language. Okay, well, you learn the most important phrases first, where is the bar, for example, or,
you can stop me there. I'm fine there.
Right. You learn these like few phrases that are like the most important phrases that you might, hello, goodbye, thank you, and then, you just like when you are in a situation now, you can kind of figure out how to communicate, and that's what this is communication. So it's like, and as you learn a language, you add to your vocabulary, you add to your fluency, and you just get better at it. But it doesn't mean that when you knew less that you couldn't communicate. You could still communicate. And I think that's the thing, is like when you get into a real live playing situation, you practice at home and you do all your practice, but like when you get into a live situation, now you're like communicating, and now you try to really, emote something, and you don't have to show off everything that you can do, but like really just try to be musical, and so that would be advice that I'd like to give you, and I'd also like to watch this and take my own advice, because that's a discipline, and I don't always do that either. Sometimes I listen back to, or sometimes where I'm playing a live show and I just know I'm doing something that's just, why am I doing this? Really, and, So it's good to always try to keep in mind and try to keep that perspective when you're playing in like a real live situation. It's just that really what we're trying to do is serve a song and serve, the audience and communicate something and get them to feel something, And hey, sometimes that is doing something really stupid. That's okay too, But
entertain yourself on stage sometimes.
Yeah. But and I think like sometimes too it's like, I personally on stage even I like to take risks. And sometimes you place your bet and you lose, Sometimes you go for something and it's just, but I prefer to be on the edge like that, and I prefer to push myself and try to do something. Sometimes you miss, and that's okay too. And it's like that's, I think, part of like, the concentration of playing in live is also to kind of be right in the moment and not to be like stuck on. And that happens sometimes too. If you make a mistake with something, sometimes you can get stuck on that mistake. And now here's that interference again, and it's interfering with what you're doing in the moment. And so it's just kind of like, being aware of that, and whether you're in a jam or in any live setting that you feel like you're trying to, create music, it's like, yeah, just try to remember that even if you make a mistake, you just want to keep moving forward, keep moving forward. Forget about that, keep moving forward, because the goal is to sort of, have the whole picture,
So thank you all, everybody that made it out. I know there's a bunch of people I don't know. I think I met Frank before in real life. Thanks for coming out. And we have Maria Fairchild, who is our resident banjo player, and she's going to open up the next concert, I think, with Lazy John, Maria. I think that's what I have.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Is that okay?
I don't know. I thought, isn't that one where the bee landed on the
We're just going to
on the neck, and I kind of freaked out?
Yeah.
Hey, Maria, I wanted to thank you. I ended up getting one of those banjos that you recommended.
Oh, the Recording King?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
I think you're going to like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's it is what it is, but it's like, for what it is, it's actually not bad at all. It actually sounds decent,
Yeah, it's a good value for the money.
So you have a banjo buddy, Maria.
That's right.
You definitely don't want to be anywhere near me when I'm playing banjo. Nobody wants to be anywhere near me when I'm playing banjo.
So I'd like to thank BACA, Bluegrass Club of Long Island, and the Babylon Citizens Council of the Arts, and everybody that made it out today. Andy, would you mind playing us the tune out? Something lyrical. That's what I'm asking for.
Something lyrical. Let's see. What should I play?
I don't know. That's my fault.
My brain doesn't work. I know. Well, does anyone have any kind of like a request or anything? Any type of tune that anyone wants? I'll try to.
Andy, I love Peace of Mind, and that's one of your originals, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, I'll do that for you for sure. One second, let me just adjust this microphone a little bit. If I had a block of wood, I'd fashion myself something good. A guitar or a fishing pole, or something that would not get old. If I had a block of wood, if I had a roll of twine, I'd make myself a rope to climb, and tie it to the highest tree, and look how far as I could see. If I had a roll of twine, if If I could leave one thing behind, a story for peace of mind, peace of mind. And if I wrote about my life, I'd write it now and not think twice. And I'd leave it in an open book and hope someday they'll take a look. Let them know I did my best before they lay me down to rest. If I could leave one thing behind, a story for peace of mind, peace of mind. Whoa, peace of mind. Peace of mind. If I could leave one thing behind, a story for peace of mind, a story for peace of mind, peace of mind, peace of mind. Peace of mind. Probably more of the folky version.
Thanks, man. Awesome.
Hey,
thank you, Andy, for
thank you all so much for being here. And I, want to thank Bill once again for asking me to be a part of it, and the rest of the Baca crew. Thank you all so much, and for all of you also for being here. I really appreciate you guys being here, and it's great to see some old friends.
Well, thank you.
Years.
Good to see you.
Thanks,
Wish you
Andy.
well.
All right, everybody.
Hopefully, I can see you all at a Bluegrass jam one of these days soon.
One of these days.
Thank you, Baca. Thank you, Andy, so much, you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No problem. Good times. All right, I'm signing off, people. Have a great day. Thank you so much, or a great night. And I'll see you next Saturday for Pluck and Rail. And then Buddy Miriam and Backroads is the next weekend. And then Halloween is Andy Falco and the Falco Brothers. Pretty rocking. It's a cool performance. And unfortunately, it was the second performance. But, we got
costumes. I can't believe I didn't wear a cape. I never miss an opportunity to wear a cape. But I didn't know that it was going to be airing on Halloween. Otherwise, I definitely would have worn my cape. I should have worn my cape tonight.
I can superimpose one on the video if you want.
Yes. I will wear a cape whenever. I think capes should be brought back into fashion.
You're allowed to dress up on the Zoom meeting, okay?
I'm next time I'm wearing a cape.
All right. Signing off, everybody. I'll see you all on Saturday if you guys want to come out. And then I'll see you next Wednesday for Joe Newberry. Peace and love. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you later. Thank you all.